Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, and I'm another day older working out in the cold weather. Guys, no matter what, this brings me a certain amount of energy. I enjoy what we do, Kevin, and I enjoy the conversations that we have with the people in the audience. This is just like I could do this every day instead of working outside in the freezing cold. Like this would be better.
It does sound nicer, admittedly.
Yeah.
That's working out in the cold is rough.
Yeah,
And
I used to play Fortnite, and then I see all these Twitch streamers. I almost started Twitch streaming Fortnite, right? And this one guy that I played with, he called himself Grumpy Grandpa, and I was like Grumpy Grandpa Trash Bandit. You know what I mean? And like we were kind of buds for a while. This guy's got like 1 million subscribers on like a Twitch stream, so he just goes and
could have
plays
been you.
Fortnite all day.
Could have been you, man.
It could have
Could have been
me.
living that dream.
Should have been me.
Missed opportunity. We could have just done a Twitch stream. Still could have done the show. We just, we play video games while doing it. That's
Yeah. When my kid was 11, 10, 11, and 12, he got into watching, like, he wasn't even playing video games. He was watching YouTube streamers and Twitch streamers playing video games.
oh yeah,
And
that's totally a thing.
I can't believe it. These guys people send them money while they're playing. It's a miracle. It's like, I don't know. Screaming idiots playing video games, and my kids watching them, and thousands of other kids are watching them.
Tim, sounds like you're jealous, man. Sounds like you're jealous.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
All right.
So, Tim's plan to build a large Twitch following aside, we do have some substantive topics to talk about today. It's gonna be kind of a rapid fire show probably today. I don't know. I mean, y'all know how we do it. We might end up on a topic for like 30 minutes, or we have like 10 things lined up right now. I got a ton of tabs lined up. We'll see what we get to. We'll talk about Tim praising government.
I am going to praise government, and you guys have heard me complain about. Well, let's save it for the show. But the Oneonta parking situation and the parking garage, and it's wild times.
Yeah,
they've got a plan in place that I don't freaking hate. It's weird. It's weird for me.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about kind of a raid on a unlicensed raw food situation. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We got there's a
food.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. Maybe I got a Florida bill lined up that I'm gonna just drop on Tim.
Oh, beautiful.
Cold and see what he thinks about that.
Oh, those are the best. I love it.
Yeah. So we'll see what we get to. If you have topics, other stuff that you want to talk to too. Again, this is gonna be a rapid fire day. So
yeah,
there's something out there. We'll just roll with it.
Exploding consumer debt, Kevin. I want to talk about
consumer debt. That's another one. So we'll talk about that, and then last segment maybe we'll talk about the aliens down in Miami.
Oh, we got to
see what it is.
Rumbling it up at a mall.
Yeah, right. So it's all part of the plan tonight, folks. We'll get to the show in about 15 seconds. But again, you have something you want to talk about? Throw it in there. Throw the topic out. Patricia's excited about the aliens. I'm glad. All right, we're going to head in 3, 2.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, brother, and I'm in a weird, and the people, the WYSL listeners and our audience out there and in the internet world, I'm in a weird position here, Kevin, because the government has taken on a plan in little old Oneonta, New York, that I absolutely don't hate. It's just it's
Wow.
awful for me. It's awful. It's an
You
awful.
heard it here, folks. Tim is praising a government's. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, look, here's
Wow.
the thing that I wanted to ask you, Kevin. Like, first of all, I've complained about the parking situation in downtown Oneonta for years, much to people not even acknowledging that there is a parking issue in Oneonta, that the old parking garage was beat up and that it was wore out and people didn't want to park there. And it's a quaint little drive through, like on Route 7. It kind of constricts Route 7. And so you can drive down quaint, beautiful little Oneonta, New York, but there's no place to pull out to the side of the road and go into a store. Like there's loading and unloading zones. There's 3 or 4 spots in a row where you have to parallel park. And this is on a relatively, like Route 7 is a relatively busy street. So
It's not like a 30, is it a 30-mile-an-hour street?
it is a 30-mile-an-hour road, but it's a state route. So people who are
yeah,
trying to travel on Route 7 go through downtown Oneonta. So there are times of the day where there's just lots of cars, and parallel parking is a challenge, right? And so they've built these, I want to call them abutments into the road where they planted trees, and then there'd be 3 or 4 parking spots, and then another abutment into the road where they planted some more trees and put some benches. It's very attractive, but what it doesn't allow for is in and out parking that I see in every other small town that I drive through. Like, so.
Well, you know why people
ahead.
do that, like the abutments. It's to slow cars down. That's what
Sure.
I mean, it's not just like an aesthetic thing. It's like that added visual conflict causes people to slow down. And if they're crossing points too, like it's safer for pedestrians to cross there.
Yeah, there's always right. You're absolutely right. That was the original plan, and certainly the plan too was to make it more attractive, right? Which I got to give them credit for. Like it is a pretty little area. So the answer to that issue was to build this parking garage. The parking garage never got maintained properly. They used to try to charge for parking in it, and of course, like, I'm sorry, no one paid. You know what I mean? And then they built a walkway over to the parking garage, which was also attractive, but somewhat intimidating. And I don't know that people ever felt comfortable with it. So what they're doing now is the parking garage has lived its life expectancy. They're tearing it down. They're getting rid of it. And they're putting in some open air parking at the level of Market Street. And they're building what's called a transit hub, which is a place the buses now park slightly outside of the main downtown area in front of a plaza. And they're going to have the Oneonta Public Transit parked down in the transit hub, and they're going to run the Oneonta Trailways or Greyhound buses through it as well, which is a nice improvement in the organization of this situation, especially if where the buses now pull off to the side of the road, they just put off-street parking where people can just pull off and park. So there's something to this. It's going to cost a massive amount of money. So the issue gets to be, guys, where does a libertarian stance come in? Like I've been explaining to them, like this project's probably 15, 20, $25 million. You know what I mean? It's going to be massive. So here's the thing. I think it's going to be an improvement. I think it's going to serve the downtown merchants pretty well. And I'm like, well, how else would they get this done, Kevin? How else would this have come together with a better downtown plan other than relying on the government for it?
Yeah. I mean, there could have been other private opportunities there, but no one's probably going to do it given the structure, incentives, and regulations that exist for being able to build something like that in private markets. Unless there's like a lot of volume there, mass transit's tough, right? Sometimes it exists. Sometimes there are tourist towns where you can develop mass transit with private sources and do that. You can Rochester has like private, like open lots and everything too, although in downtown, for better or worse, that's a thing that exists there.
Now, does it work? Because here's the thing. I always thought that even a private lot down there, even if the charge was minimal, if it was situated right and then took out some of the more imposing buildings because honestly, it feels very
You want to
a little.
de-densify the downtown area?
Yeah, could
I mean,
like, bulldoze something off and be like, give me $1 and you can park here.
well, my thought on that is that private companies should do what makes sense with the land, but in like a dense, like downtownish area, parking usually isn't the thing that makes the most sense, right? Like they're both private developers and governments are going to stand to make more money by building something like bigger and denser there, right?
Yeah.
And that's how like a lot of small towns were, right? It's not even like a downtown city thing. It's like this is how villages are organized. You build around the central core, and all the stuff that there is to do exists around this one central place, and you kind of have an easy way to navigate that. So like in Rochester, it's a thing, but like part of it is that at some point in time, there's enough demand for parking because people want to or need to drive downtown that it becomes profitable and worthwhile for someone to say, hey, I need a lot and I'm willing to pay $5 for a couple hours for it. Or I need a secure lot and I'm willing to pay $20, $30 a day for whatever it is, right?
Right.
And so like it just depends on what the market situation is. And it is entirely possible with, enough demand for private companies to get in this space. In fact, the city of Rochester just sold off one of their garages. I think they sold it to the University of Rochester. And so like that's the thing, like the city's offloading some of its like parking infrastructure. And like to me, like there is and should be like if you have a limited number of spaces in it, like if you have like as much parking as you need, like on the street or something, right? Okay, then like you're not gonna be able to charge for anything because why, right? Like but if you want to limit the incentive for people to park or encourage people to move faster, that's when you charge for stuff. Or you do what it sounds like your town's doing is you have everyone park off site, kind of away from that space that's more valuable, and then transport them in, which I think is a pretty good idea. And a lot of towns do that in the Adirondacks now, both to get to their like downtownish areas and to get to trailheads. Because if you've ever been hiking up in the Adirondacks, sometimes there's these trailheads for like great, awesome, hiking trails going up mountains and stuff. And then there's like 2 parking spots.
Right. I've seen them.
And so
I get where you're coming from. I haven't painted the picture quite perfectly though, because there's a piece that I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a demand for free parking for downtown Oneonta because there are some offices.
Of course, there's a demand for free everything, Tim.
Sure.
Everyone loves free stuff.
But when it comes to paying for parking, there's less of a demand for that. But as such, there was a parking lot that had been deeded to the people of Oneonta from the Wilbur Bank, which now turned into Community Bank family, deeded them this massive parking lot. And the city of Oneonta decided that the people of Oneonta wanted artist lofts and low-income housing in that free parking lot that was not terribly inconvenient. So they had a parking garage. They took this parking lot, put housing in it. There were businesses around the parking lot.
Oneonta did it like it was like a city decision.
Government decision. Government built low housing, low-income housing and artist loft style.
Or did they sell it to a developer who decided that was the best use of that land?
It was a combination of like the government was substantially involved in it. There was rezoning that had to happen. They partnered with the developer, if I understand it correctly. And
well, is it one of those things like we will sell you this land on the condition that you build some affordable housing type of deal?
Correct. I think that would be the most accurate way to assess that. But it was like big, like Peter Obracher went down for the groundbreaking. All of the local politicians went down for the groundbreaking because it was quite a governmental accomplishment to get this developer that land, right? Like that's the reality of the situation. They're all very proud of themselves and very much patting themselves on the back.
I mean, all right, like Tim, it's like, what do you want? Do you want government subsidized housing or do you want government subsidized parking? Right? Like,
technically, right? I don't want either. I don't want either. I want people to be free to rent their houses out with an agreement in place that protects landlords and tenants, but we've talked about that enough on this show.
Yes. All right. We'll kill the zoning and the rental
Yeah.
landlord conversation. We'll kill that. Nip in the bud here. But
Yeah.
get like it
shops in neighborhoods, Kevin, which apparently that sets the city of Oneonta on fire. Okay. Like if someone wants to open a coffee shop in the neighborhood, there's a big, huge public debate about it, and people get at each other's throats. So
that's the thing. I mean, listen, it's everywhere. Like it's a thing in my neighborhood, which again, I live in a walkable neighborhood in the city of Rochester, and people lost their minds over a hair salon turning into a coffee shop because, oh, what if too many people park here? Guys, we live in the city. For goodness sakes, like people park on the street here. We're not afraid of parallel parking. Well, most of us ain't.
I'm just always aghast and flabbergasted at the overwhelming negative response when somebody wants to open a business in a neighborhood where there's already kind of commercial enterprises, right? There's schools that are there. There's a church that's there. There's doctor's offices nearby. The downtown is a block away. It's like, okay, what? I don't understand why we've got to freak all the way out about this, but okay, you win, and luckily I don't live in the city of Oneonta, so I can just sit back and criticize them. Excuse me. But one of the things we got to the libertarian solution would have been, yes, at some point a private developer could have developed that land in this situation. And you pointed
just
at,
sell the land. That's the private developer will do what makes the most sense for that. And that might be parking. And some people are going to be mad about that. And that might be apartments. And some people are going to be mad about that.
Yeah. What you did a good job was nailing the problem with the mass transit situation, because what happens regularly, Kevin, is they have bus routes that go all over the county from this local hub. And for whatever reason, maybe it's just the time of day, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but they run big, huge, empty buses hours and hours and miles a day. And it's like, it can't just be luck. There's got to be an issue where the buses are pretty empty and that we are kind of somehow subsidizing empty buses to go from Oneonta to Cooperstown.
I could never understand how the buses in the Utica Rome area were at all profitable. Like it never made sense to me. Like for a little while, there's like a bus near the business park near my house. And I was like, there's no way there's enough people doing that, because 90% of that space around there is parking lots that are filled. Like who's taking the bus? Like, maybe what, 3 or 4 people a day? Like no way that like makes sense. Unless, but a lot of transit agencies, like, and I've interestingly enough been in like a nonprofit like meeting with a transit agency board. Like they're explicitly like sort of built around the idea of like, this is a service to help the poor rather than this is a service to move as many people as possible. And sometimes that thinking, I think, ends up making it so that their model becomes inherently unprofitable.
They almost, I mean, it would be hard for them to make money. Their goal would have to be to find money to subsidize routes that they can claim are helping poor people. Because if a private developer did it, there would be one bus run, and it would go from downtown Oneonta up to the colleges and over to Walmart, and it would just make that route all day long, about every 45 minutes. And that would actually make money, because there are always kids that need to go downtown, people that want to go to Walmart, and then people that want to come back from Walmart, and then kids that want to go back up to campuses. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, right. No, that's a thing, right? I mean, it's funny. That's like, it's also like a thing here, but like the local colleges, like I think U of R and RIT both have like their own like bus service. They might have like integrated with RTS at this point, but yeah, that makes sense for folks who are less likely to have cars and not going to bring their car on campus, or people just need to get to Walmart and around some of the populated areas. Great. Yeah. Like should be a thing.
They could stop at the mall too, even though our mall is pretty much half dead, but like they could include the mall in the loop, and that would be one bus, nonstop cycling, 14 hours a day, and it would probably make bank.
Yeah. And if you could do that, like that'd be great, but probably no one will jump into that market, because they're like, well, if it ever becomes profitable, this government subsidized entity would just jump in and offer the same thing and undercut them. So why take the risk?
Yeah. So we do have some comments out there, Kevin. If
Yeah. Let's throw some comments
our
out.
audience. Apparently, the situation in Oneonta is not unique to Oneonta. Like, there's a huge parking issue in Plattsburgh as well. Thank you, Patricia Blanchard. I think your point is
Patricia, like the define parking issue, as in like you don't feel like there's enough parking.
Yeah.
Like leave a comment, tell us about it.
All right.
Because like it's one of those things where I used to think that about like Rochester too, and I'm like, oh, there's not enough parking. And then you look at like the land area, like how much land area in Rochester is parking, and it's like half of it. Like it's a lot of land area. It's kind of crazy, like when you think about it.
Yeah, I think one of the things I get into is one of the reasons why I've extolled the virtues of Walmart in the past is because of the absolute convenience of being able to pull into a spot, see the door that I'm walking to, and go in there. And if I want to wait for a closer spot, I can get a closer spot. If I want to like take that hike across the lot, I can park farther away, but I can see where I'm going. It's very comfortable and it provides easy access to a multitude of goods. I think that's one of the many ways that Walmart wins is this convenience of parking that they offer.
No, I mean it is, right? And you know, like, and again, as a private business, like I get it. You know, it's just one of those things where like you start to think about in areas where you have enough people to like kind of get around on your own, to have stuff near you, to have like a mass transit system that's profitable. It starts to seem kind of odd, like how much space ends up getting taken up by a spot to put your car rather than just a spot to like have another business.
Yeah.
And sometimes these are, again, government owned places too. So and I'll share this thing which is interesting. This is Rochester's map. This is downtown Rochester. And all that red area is parking, right? Like, so
wow.
It's a huge amount of space.
It looks great on a map, but like, does it actually work? You know what I mean? That's my question.
Well, people still complain about like not enough parking, but like there's a ton of parking.
Yeah, well,
and people want free parking too, but like,
Yeah.
like, man, you're not owed government subsidized parking either, because if you have private land or even government owned land, like, okay, this is a thing that costs money to maintain. You're not owed this subsidized parking. Like that's my libertarian position on it. Like parking should cost money.
So that's fair, right? And if it was convenient, I would pay money to park in downtown, right? Like it would work. I think there's this parking versus walking, and I want my parking to not include a long walk to whatever store I'm going.
You want to, yeah. See, there's parking. You just don't want to have to walk for 3 minutes to get to wherever you're going. Tim,
yeah,
that just gotta be honest, it just sounds kind of lazy to me, man.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It is a.
I mean, if you're not like able-bodied, I get it, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I would call it an issue of convenience, Kevin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not so much lazy.
And Patricia did respond to us. She said, not enough parking, trying to take the only large parking lot for high-rise apartments. So similar to what's going on. Now it's parking meters being put in at the end of the street, and you have to walk to the end of the block to pay.
Yeah, they're forcing you to be healthy. I hate them for that.
Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of like there's no reason for that anymore. Like you can have parking meters, and you could have it all on like an app and stuff now too. Like it's just there's easier ways to do it. Like I saw like City of Auburn has something like that too. You just download an app and you say I'm at this spot, and then you pay for it on your phone, and you know it's like $1.50 or something. It's not a lot. But anyway, we do have to head to break now. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution on WSL. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
The Joker Gamer says Walmart don't care about their workers. Here's the thing. They care enough to help them calculate out how to maximize their government benefits in addition to their working for Walmart. So they do, in fact, care about them. They care about helping them have the easiest life possible. And they literally set up in areas where their business model can make that happen, where there's a lot of people that have subsidized income that might want to work 10 to 20 to 30 hours a week and not lose their benefits. Now, that takes us to a discussion of the welfare cliff. Kevin and I have talked about it on other shows. We'll talk about it on other shows in the future. But they do care, and they care a lot because they want low wage workers who are willing to not make a lot of money and come in and work while having a little bit of a social experience. Like literally, it's part of their game plan. They're literal logistic geniuses on so many levels. They're logistical geniuses on employing people. They're logistical geniuses on supplying goods and services. It's wild. So Vince says, and I wanted to do this one on the radio show, nobody has been to Oneonta, Tim. That's why nobody cares. And then yet Vince reveals that he has in fact been to Oneonta, because doesn't everyone have to walk through the lobby of a random building to get to their parking garage to Main Street? That was exactly the situation of the parking garage. So Vince says nobody goes to Oneonta, but in fact, Vince has been to Oneonta.
Yeah.
To be clear.
Let's see. What was the other one I was gonna?
Patty called me out on welfare. I'm sorry, Patty, because welfare was a general term, but yeah, SSI. There's lots of benefits that Walmart works to balance out for its employees. Absolutely, SSI, all that stuff. SSDI, yes. Thank you. By the way, it is Patricia Blanchard's birthday. She is 63, and she got herself a new tattoo.
Happy birthday! Yeah. And one more comment from Patricia. Trees aren't only nice to look at; they do lower temps in the cities, but they need to be placed properly and cared for properly, unless indigenous to that area. Yeah, that's part of it. And that's why Rochester's spending like $3 million on trees this year. Thanks, Chuck.
And
Schumer.
they have Chuck Schumer to thank for that, Kevin.
Yeah, good old Chuck.
Very clear. He brought home the bacon from the federal government and the
for trees.
Was it?
I'm a fan of trees too. I'm just like, I don't know. This seems a bit ridiculous. But yeah, I mean they can be good. They can be like, people can do dumb things with them too, or pick trees that are messy.
Yeah. We have our streets here are lined with Norwegian maples. Now, Norwegian maples are a very interesting tree. They're very hardy. They grow aggressively. And then once they get to be big, like if there was one, they would look kind of beautiful. But since there's a bunch of them and they've been chopped up for the power lines to go through and stuff like that, we have these big, huge, massive Norwegian maple trees all over my tree-lined street that honestly, they could all get cut down and I would be just as happy. They're oppressive. The trees are oppressing me.
They're oppressive.
Yeah.
Wow. Tim is being oppressed
by trees.
To tell that to Chuck Schumer.
He doesn't care.
You'll get another $3 million to cut him down.
Yeah. That would be a good price to get them cut down.
Yeah.
Maple syrup from Norwegian maple trees is actually pretty delicious, though. It takes on a kind of a caramel flavor. It's a little bit less mapley and more caramely, but it's still absolutely delicious.
Yeah, I gotta try it sometime. I got a what do you call it? A spile? Is that what you call those things? The things you hit into the tree, maple tree to like get the stuff out. I got one from one of the local Buy Nothing groups, and like I have not used it yet. Like there's a bunch of maple trees. Like there's a couple in my backyard, and there's also some in the park next door, which I don't think anyone would bother me if I, did that.
Yeah, Kevin, listen, like honestly, all you want to make is a half a gallon, right?
Spile, yeah.
Spile, yeah, and like one good sized tree, you can get a half a gallon of syrup. It takes forever to boil off the syrup. Like
it's like an all day activity. I mean, well, like I got
all day. It takes more than all day. Trust me, it's forever.
Well, listen, like I can go in my backyard. I have like a propane tank, and I have one of those like propane, like not stove things, but like a what do you call it? Like a stand in a massive pot. So like I can just sit out there and drink beer and let the stuff boil off and stir,
Oh my God. Yeah. No, about 4 years ago, I made about 4 gallons of maple syrup with like from the Norwegian trees. And then I got a couple sugar maples on my little 1/10 of an acre at my lake. And at my shop, I've got a big, huge sugar maple. And the guy across the street from my shop let me tap a couple of his trees. And then I mixed in some of the Norwegian maples and I made like 4 gallons of syrup. But I boiled sap for, I don't know, 300 hours. I'm not sure. It was wild.
Just like days.
It was wild. I was just like sitting at my shop. I built that was back when nailed it was a big thing, right? And people would build stuff and post a picture of it. So, and like somebody would make a beautiful cake, and then someone would do an imitation of that cake, and they'd be like, "Look, I nailed it." And it would be like a 2-year-old made it, and that was the exact kind of set boiler that I built. I'm like, nailed it. It was out of level. It was just like just enough room to throw. I was throwing brush in it that from my shop. I don't know. It was so much fun though. I don't even know what. Like, it was great.
Nice, love it. All right. Well, we should probably head back.
We might better. Yeah, we might better.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the that food raid situation and maybe consumer debt. Let's see where we get to.
Famous Amos. Oh no, that's not who it is. But
yeah, but yeah. Then we'll go back in about 15 seconds. Keep leaving your comments. Appreciate all of y'all leaving the stuff. Number one fan, Patricia. Right on. Thanks for being here. All right, we're gonna head back in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wills, for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. And we've got a horrible, egregious situation in Pennsylvania near Lancaster to talk about.
All right, tell us about it.
Well,
what's going on?
Anarchist Amos, the Amish guy who has a food club outside of Lancaster. And look, a food club is like where people buy shares or go shopping directly from a local farmer who sometimes buys some of his goods, but puts in a good effort at producing a lot of his own food to put on his shelves. So Amos has been in trouble a couple times for not filing the proper paperwork with the Pennsylvania authorities. And now recently, the power of the government came down on him, Kevin, and closed up his shop and took all of his inventory because of a report of an E. coli infection in an underage individual. And guys, look.
Well, apparently a couple. It's in two other states, apparently.
Right, but is that his food, or is this just happened in other places? I was a little bit unclear from the article in the Lancaster Patriot.
Lancaster Online, yeah, that's one of the ones I'm looking at too. Like it seemed like that was it seems like it was from them. That's what I understood it to be.
Okay, so basically, I'm always skeptical when big government comes in and seizes food with. So the allegations are specified, but the person is not specified. So when they fall back on an underage person reporting a sickness, anyways, I'm skeptical. I think that Amos is in their crosshairs, and I think that it's because he didn't want to file the proper paperwork.
Yeah, it says that. I'll quote from this newspaper again, Lancaster Online. It says, the department said Miller does not have a state permit to sell raw milk, nor is registered his retail operation with the state. So he's just selling stuff.
It's just
selling
food.
I have a bit of a soft spot for it. I get it.
Yeah. Our man Thomas Massey took a stand. Looks like Amos Miller's farm is being raided with all the problems in society today. This is what the government wants to focus on. A man growing food for informed customers without participating in the industrial meat milk complex. It's shameful that it comes to this. I mean, that resonates with me. You guys could have guessed that,
So, I mean, this is like kind of a classic like libertarian I'm gonna butcher the Latin pronunciation of this phrase, caveat emptor, that's how I say it, but buyer beware, right? So should you be able to go and take a risk to buy a product that might have some risk associated with it, right? Like buying raw milk, right?
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that a lot of people used to get sick constantly from drinking raw milk because cows are kind of filthy, right? Like it's just what it is. They're a little bit dirty, right? That's what it is. And so that's why most milk consumed nowadays is pasteurized. But some people don't like that for various reasons, right? Like they think it might destroy some, flavor or vitamins or whatever in it, right? And they say they have the right to be able to sell milk or to buy that milk, and then therefore people have the right to sell that, and they're willing to take on that risk. So Tim, I think you and I probably agree, like adults at least have the ability to do that, right? You should be able to make voluntary transactions or do things even when you know there might be a risk involved.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Sure. Like, yes, drinking raw milk is a discretionary behavior, right? Like you can choose to drink raw milk because you believe the benefits from non-pasteurized milk most likely outweigh the risks, right? So you're saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the cream and make it and put it in my coffee. You're going to do some fun things with it. It's a risk you're willing to take, but you're taking a risk. It's relatively low risk, but you're taking the risk,
Right. Yeah. I mean, and there's risk in all sorts of stuff. There's also risk in like, eating a raw steak too, right? The same thing, right? Like, which, I've had a steak like, like blue rare before, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's good,
Yeah.
right? Like it's, like that's the thing. And I know that like that is a risk to doing that now. And I'm willing to take it. So I think like that's a pretty like baseline libertarian position, because we'll say that about raw milk. We'll say that about drugs too. It's like, okay, you buyer beware, like you're taking a risk buying this. And you are deciding that the benefits outweigh the risk. Okay, sure. I've also had this conversation with, oh man, I'm gonna blank on the name now. It's but there's a group that like felt that helmet laws for motorcycles are unconstitutional, and New York Abate, I think is what it was called. And I have no idea if they're still around, but same thing. That was the thing. Like, well, we don't want to wear helmets, and that's all right. And I'm like, well, yeah, no, I guess, right. That's your thing. I think it does get trickier though if like who is responsible if someone does feed this to a child and the child gets sick, right? Is the seller responsible? Should they have made their product safer? Are the parents responsible for imposing that risk on their child? I think that's where people start to go, oh, government, someone needs to do something for the children, right? Like,
Sure.
And I'm not even being like sarcastic about this one. This is like, we don't want to see kids get sick with stuff. What do we do about it?
Right. And for the children has cost us all so much freedom and so many dollars in taxes, when in fact a lot of times it ends up being just for the government. But I accept the point you're trying to make. And it's actually valid. So who is responsible? And I'm going to say that the parents are responsible. They're responsible. They provided the raw milk to their child. And now that goes past me already kind of questioning the narrative being offered by the government.
Right.
So
yeah, like for the sake of this argument, we're just assuming everything's on the up and up, and I have no idea. Like the underage person got, for all I know, they're 17-year-old who bought it. I have no idea. Like I don't have the context of this. Like should a 17-year-old be able to buy raw milk? Well, yeah, probably. But like again, it does get a bit different if you're giving raw milk to like a 5-year-old, and then the 5-year-old gets sick. Like, yeah, but also like I know like same thing can happen with a bunch of other food too. It's just what level of risk are like you willing to take for like is it acceptable to give sushi to a young child, right? Like at what age is that fine? Dude, there's some risk involved in that. I eat sushi constantly. There's some risk involved in doing that.
Right, and they can't arguably make an informed decision, right? Like because of their age. So it is a challenge. Right. But I'm also like, this is food. Your farmer doesn't want to make you sick. As long as there was no major consequences, and look, a case of E. coli can be major, but if it's caught soon enough, like most likely we're going to recover, right? Yeah. Like it's not going to be this long-term big deal. So does the government have the right to seize Amos's property? Or like what is the best role? Like we're certainly hitting conundrums tonight with the libertarian credo.
Right. I know. I mean, like to me, like it starts to jump into, are they being like intentionally or like not, I guess, intentionally negligent, sort of a oxymoron there, but like, are they being like reckless in like their food preparation stuff? All right, like, yeah, and then where do you draw that line? Or are they being fraudulent with stuff, right? Are they telling people their safety procedures but then lying about them? Okay, like that type of stuff like crosses into line of legitimate government action. But like, again, if you want to have like a raw milk product and you care about the quality and you care about like, that your customers are satisfied, should you be able to do that knowing that there's some risk of that taking place? Yeah, probably. And I know Brian on Facebook says, I've consumed hundreds of gallons of raw milk right out of the tank, never got sick. Yeah, man. If it's and for a lot of people, probably not, right? Again, it's just a matter of like, is it worth rolling the dice for you? Again, like I'm in a situation where my wife's pregnant. She has to debate like, they tell pregnant people not to eat cold cuts, right? And she's like, okay, yeah, there's some small risk if I eat cold cuts. I could get sick and that could be really bad. Is it worth the risk? Maybe, maybe not, right? Like everyone has to make that decision on their own. Should there be a law against selling pregnant people like subs? No, that's dumb. Like there should not be a law against that. But like
steal that idea, Kevin, and be like,
I know, like that's gonna be like Kathy Hochul's gonna come out like in a few weeks and say like we need to protect expectant pregnant people, and we're going to ban selling subs to pregnant people. I apologize to my wife when that happens, if she is craving a sub before my next child is here.
Oh, it's wild. So I'm against them seizing Amos's property. I would like it to be certainly Amos's lawyer has made the case that it's a malicious act based on his desire to not participate with the governmental regulatory process that might surround what he is doing.
Right.
And I find those pieces of the puzzle to be compelling to me. As always, like, to be fair, like, so I don't know, man. I get it. I get what you're saying. I get the conundrum there. And so I don't know. Should we deal with another conundrum?
I don't know, maybe. I want to get this one. Patricia on YouTube says, I make fresh apple cider at home and bottle it. It's my risk that it will turn to vinegar and or explode if it's there long enough. Yeah. And actually, I've done that too. I've done the apple pressing and everything and turned that into cider with mixed success. I actually did have bottles explode on me. So, I messed that up a bit, but like, I mean, I drank the raw cider too, which is drinking raw cider after like it just being like pressed is a risk.
It absolutely is. I've made apple cider as well. And the way that we make it, I am sure that it's a risk. I guarantee it.
Yeah, but like in college, like we there's someone with a cider press, and there's a bunch of like it's down on Cayuga Lake, and there's we went apple picking, we got a bunch of apples, and we decided to make cider.
Yeah. So those presses, those places that run those presses like that, generally do a good job of washing the apples. They have a treatment before they crush the apples and grind them and give
professional places. To be clear, we were a bunch of dumb college students and absolutely did not do that correctly.
Oh, good.
We like kind of like ran them over the sink briefly, and we're like, we sort of hosed off a little bit this wooden press. So like, yeah, that was.
Oh, I misunderstood. We have a local place that makes apple cider, and you can bring like bushels and bushels of apples, and they will wash them for you and give you back cider in return. So I thought,
no. This was us like making it on the front lawn of the college after going and getting apples from like a local orchard.
I love it. That's great.
The local is like the local share farm there, and so we could pick apples. And we you just take what you want, and there's a place called the Greenhouse that had a wooden cider press, and we just made them out there and then drank the raw cider.
That's wonderful. And how'd you guys make out?
We lived.
Survived. All right.
Yeah, we survived. I mean, I think someone also did try to turn that into alcoholic cider in their dorm room too, but I think it was unsuccessful. They just made vinegar. So
that works too. Vinegar works. Kevin, look, I oftentimes we get on economic issues, and I don't know how much time we have left in the
a minute and a half.
How much?
Like a minute and a half.
All right. So for the next segment, I want to talk a little bit about to the WSL audience and to people in general about a hidden level of consumer debt and the reality of consumer debt that we're facing. And I think that it's important to talk about these things regularly, regularly mention the lies behind Bidenomics and the real crises that the American people are facing. And I think that for the next segment of the show, that and guys, Elon Musk got caught doing drugs. Like, I think it's pretty important.
You know, I almost forgot about Elon doing drugs too. That was also on our topic list. Elon on drugs, which could get in trouble because he has government contracts where the employees receiving these contracts and these grants are prohibited from doing drugs. So
and he has his own employee contracts and he's an employee of SpaceX and Tesla that forbid in their agreements using drugs.
Right. Well,
so
that's awkward. So on that note, though, we are going to head to break. Thanks again for joining us here on the Free Solution at WSL. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. All right. Yeah. Let's see.
An interesting time, Kevin.
Brian says, newsflash, alcohol is a drug.
What? Cheers, Brian.
It is, in fact, a drug. So is caffeine, for that matter.
And so is nicotine, I imagine.
It is.
They're all drugs. It's all like better living through chemicals. We all do it.
That's right. So should the drugs that Elon Musk is doing be something he is punished for? I know. I guess we should probably just jump right back into the show, right? Like we'll just get right back into it because I don't know what we're gonna talk about during break. So we'll head back in at 47 here and take just a 1 minute break. Head back in 3, 2. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
So before the break, Kevin, I was alluding to a situation that has me as an economics major, though not an active economics guy, but I do read economic literature. I do think about economic situations. I do try to get people to understand the real costs of inflation, the real costs of government distortions in the market. And so now we're onto this, basically a hidden, first of all, I get spinning in circles, and so I apologize. But credit card debt has hit over $1 trillion. All right, consumer credit card debt. Now that number's massive. It's brought on by the government response to COVID, the ensuing inflation, the fact that people who even are having a good are making a good living, have lost buying power incrementally over the years. So they're falling back on credit card debt. So now there's these new things, and probably you guys have seen them, but you can go online and start to order something, and they're like, hey, do you want to buy this now and pay later? Where you break up your payments like into 1 or 2 or 3, different payments for a relatively expensive item. And people are jumping all over it. Now, the problem with it is, Kevin, one of the many problems. First of all, I eschew debt. I try to avoid it. But I understand that occasionally you have to take it on. But it allows for impulse buying that does not affect your credit score, and then your overall level of consumer debt is actually underreported. So we're sitting on a time bomb, I feel like, of unreported consumer debt that at some point has to constrict real consumption and real demand. Like,
right. Yeah, if you got to pay off all these things, and like some of these, like they have strict terms to still pay them back, even though like they have like kind of a quick credit check. They do that like, because I've worked in marketing, I've worked in e-commerce and stuff, and that's a big thing, right? Like, hey, we put these things in, and suddenly people are buying 2-3 more shirts, like per cart, right? Like, it's a big thing, and like, okay, and then from the customer's point of view, they're like, well, I was going to put this on my credit card, but like this is 0% interest. So like, what's the harm? I'll just pay this off over 4 months. And like, so you get with like t-shirts, and you get it with like, camping supplies. You get it with pizzas now. Like I've seen it might have been like
Yeah.
Domino's or something. Like you could finance a pizza, which is hilarious, but also kind of sad. Like, yeah, no, you
Well,
shouldn't.
it's brutally sad, I think. I think it speaks to the fact that disposable income is under siege, and it's under siege from the rampant inflation and some of the hidden inflation that doesn't make it to the official government numbers on what they present is the actual inflation rate. All right. So things like food, things like pizza, the real change in
Pizza's gotten
prices of
crazy
those
expensive.
things. What's that?
Pizza's gotten crazy expensive to prepare. Like,
But those things aren't really calculated into the official government stance
know.
on what inflation is. It's not there, right? Because it's a consumer good and it's food. So they don't put it in there. It's kind of sneaky, really.
Yeah, wings did go down a bit though from their COVID peak. We had wings.
Oh, good.
Wings were insane for a little bit. They're just absolutely ridiculous. They're still ridiculous, but like just less bad than the great wing shortage when there's
the great wing shortage of 2022 and 2021, and we're finally recovering. So that's good news.
The chickens are back. And so, but yeah, no, I mean, like all that stuff like adds up, right? And I'm sort of caught like where I'm generally like, I try to be optimistic about stuff, and I try to fairly evaluate like some of the economic numbers that say, on paper things are good, right? But you have some good points, right? Okay, but consumer debt is going up. People are still feeling like things are good because despite higher interest rates, like there's still relatively easy access to credit. And then you have these other like credit services that are not exactly outside of that system, but somewhat outside of it.
Yeah.
Where people are racking up debt for like, again, all these small things, right? It's the clothing, the pizzas, the, whatever like retail stuff they want to buy that exists on top of possibly very high credit card debt as well. And no, I'll read this other. Patricia also says on YouTube, Rent-A-Center type businesses are also booming. Yeah, which is another thing, like Rent-A-Center, like that, those type of businesses where like people are just buying on installments or whatever, right? Like it seems really good. It seems like a good deal for someone that is paying all this stuff out until suddenly something goes wrong. The economy does hit a bump, and then that all collapses, right? It ends up being very, very fragile.
That's the issue, and we see a little bit of insanity and a lot of authoritarianism in our government, and we saw the response to COVID. And what will happen if they come up with something else or some other even more legitimate situation arises? It would be kind of a financial disaster, really, on the scale of what happened in 2008, where 2 million people lost their homes. Like a lot of people, basically, if we take a look at consumer debt and the size of it, a lot more people are actually living on the edge than what we think or what we're led to believe by government statistics, right? So even at $1 trillion, if the overall rate of income it can meet the payments on that, but we have another 500 billion in hidden buy now, pay laters, which, just as an example, one disaster, one bump in the road can create a calamity where people wreck their credit. B, I don't know, like, would I feel bad if like American Express loses out? I don't know, you know what I mean? But there could be real financial implications that could snowball into a legitimate mess, I guess is how I would say it.
Yeah, right. That's could be a thing. Again, if a bunch of people have this hit like at once, right, it starts to have like these cascading effects, which is in a different way because 2008 was more of a mortgage back security thing that sort of ended up exacerbating a whole bunch of other fragilities in the economy.
Sure.
This could be like a consumer credit bubble type of thing that again, a couple bumps happen, suddenly people who have been making it work by like stacking payment on payment and adding on new debt and like just doing this like debt cycle like and
Yeah.
and if you've not had like a lot of money before, anyone who's like lived like that like and has like lived like, okay, just pay off this credit card, pay off this loan, and then do this, and then okay, then I can get another loan to finance this. That's the thing that people do when you don't have a lot of money. Like I get it, I've been there, and it's just it ends up being precarious because you're walking a tightrope with those things, and if too many people are walking those tightropes and everything falls at once, that's when you get the big issues.
Yeah, and look, when you break your consumer debt rating, everything else becomes more expensive. Like even if interest rates go down on home purchases, you're not going to be eligible for lower interest rates on your home purchase. Like
Right.
it will. So that's where I
There
got
is.
into why it could create this major disaster, right? Like banks will be unwilling to lend under any kind of acceptable interest rates. People will like on the margin may lose their house because they can't somehow at some point somebody's going to have to pay the piper. They're going to win a judgment against the consumer. The credit card companies are going to win judgments against the consumer. They're not going to be able to bankrupt as easily their way out of it. It could turn into a real mess.
Mm-hmm.
So
Good.
More
Well,
important, Kevin, Elon Musk has
talk
been
about
accused of
Elon.
doing drugs.
Yeah, he sure has. I mean, didn't he smoke a blunt on Joe Rogan like a while back?
Look, literally hanging out with Joe Rogan, you're going to be doing drugs. Like that guy talks about tripping all the time. Like if you ever, I don't know if you guys listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. I do occasionally because I've been driving a lot for work. And he talks about all sorts of hallucinogenic situations. And like if you hang out with that guy a lot, first of all, I'm sure he's occasionally experimenting with them. And certainly Elon Musk obviously is influenced by Joe Rogan or something.
Yeah. I mean, like it's not like you have to do drugs on that. Like he has tons of guests, right? Like probably most of whom don't consume drugs with him. I know some do, but I mean, Elon Musk has just kind of like talked about this stuff, bragged about this stuff a little bit. And at least that's what he's accused of. And on Joe Rogan's show, it sure seemed like he was smoking a blunt. So
yeah, so Elon has drawn the line, Kevin, and said that he's been drug tested numerous times and has passed every single drug test with flying colors. So there's literally no proof.
Yeah. Well, like we'll define what the problem is. The problem is that like he has government contracts that say employees aren't supposed to consume any illegal drugs, and and you had mentioned over the break too that he has, his own employee contracts saying that he can't do that. So if he is doing that, like, because to me, like my take on like drug use and professionalism is like, okay, if you can still do your job effectively, that's fine. Like you do you on your own time. Like if you can't do your job effectively or you're putting someone in danger, then that's not okay.
Correct.
So like that's my general take on it, but he's under contract saying that like you can't do that. So
yeah. Patricia makes a point out there that I'd like to share with everybody that microdosing hallucinogens like LSD, magic mushrooms, and things like that are actually being used regularly, and it seems to be a growing industry in psychotherapy.
What's the thing with like ketamine too? Like ketamine has like therapeutic purposes. Now, again, I don't know if that's why Elon Musk may or may not be consuming that particular drug, but it is used in some therapeutic purposes now.
Yeah. So and apparently as the data comes in with good results at lowering anxiety, with good results at increased, combating depression. I think those are the two things that these microdoses and these hallucinogens seem to work with, is combating depression and alleviating anxiety. I use alcohol to alleviate my anxiety, so I don't know about the hallucinogens.
Yeah, that's certainly a method of doing things. Speaking of drugs, let's talk about, because we have like less than 3 minutes left. Let's talk about Miami.
We've got to.
Tim, did you see the aliens in Miami? Did you see them? Did you?
I don't have to see them to know that they exist, Kevin, because people are tweeting about them all over the place on the free speech platform sponsored by the hallucinogenic user in chief, Elon Musk.
Well, speaking of Elon too, yeah.
Yeah, it's like right full circle, man.
Yeah, no, so I saw some stuff about this. What's funny is like my family who's down in Miami, like visiting right now, or they're just like hanging out there. They're going on a cruise. I was like, all right, guys, you see the aliens? You give me the scoop. They did not.
They did not.
They didn't see the aliens. They weren't around, but supposedly they were aliens, and that's why. Like, I don't know if you saw the pictures of it. It was kind of wild. There's like hundreds of police cars at like a single event. Did you see the photos and the videos of that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, so that's why people were like, oh, this is, they're saying it's just a fight, but is it really just a fight? Why would there be that many police cars for just a fight?
Well, aliens have been making like this resurgence in the news, in the news and in the government spheres of communication. We're talking about aliens again, the life from other planets, unidentified aerial phenomena where ships are operating beyond our normal understanding of accepted performances. I don't know, man. I was always a Carl Sagan guy. I was like, the odds of life on other planets is 100%. Like, it's out there. The galaxy is infinite. Even if the probability is 0.0001%, it is still 100% probable because the universe is
given an infinite universe, then what are the odds?
Yeah, and look, like we have the ability to move things incredibly fast, right? And we haven't developed the technology to move human beings that fast, but just think about if they could develop something like a gravitational pull in a small spaceship that would protect you from the forces of gravity. Certainly, that's possible.
Yeah, you need Star Trek inertial dampeners. That's what we need.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, something so dense that go in a spaceship that runs on magnets could actually alleviate the gravitational pull because it would develop its own gravitational pull, which may or may not make me sound insane to the WYSL audience. But
yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to end on that note of Tim saying bonkers because we are out of time. And if you want to hear him continue to ramble on, you're gonna have to listen to the podcast. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're gonna call it a night, folks. Take care. So anyway, Tim, you were theorizing about magnets.
Gravitational pull and magnetics and dense, like, okay, we have black holes. Black holes exist, right? So they operate outside of the normal bounds of gravitational theory as we understand it. But certainly we could develop some sort of, it could have been developed, or it could exist, an element that allows for a ship to develop its own inertial gravity center, which is arguably what happens in Star Trek when they're going warp 10, right? Many times the speed of light, they have to do something with gravity or would tear the people inside apart, right? Even if they built the ship out of materials that could survive that kind of speed. Right.
Yeah, when they're accelerating even through subspace or going through under impulse, right? Like any acceleration would squish them,
right?
Or acceleration in either direction, starting or stopping.
Even in outer space, that kind of acceleration would squish people against the wall, right? Would turn them into
right. I mean, like think about how many G's like a pilot is under on Earth when they're going just a few hundred miles an hour. And now you're doing fractions of a speed of light. Okay, yeah, like you're gonna get squished, which is why like occasionally when I'm watching Star Trek, like our inertial dampeners are out, and they kind of like jump around a bit. It's like, no, you guys would be pudding. Like you
guys would be human pudding. Absolutely, Kevin. I watched one of the older Star Treks. I've watched all of the Star Treks, but I watched some of the older stuff, and I can remember when they were experiencing some sort of turbulence. Compared to the modern special effects that we use, it was literally hilarious. There was like 20 people falling around the brig, like in different directions based on some sort of outside force being put on the ship. And it was just like,
And then
was
are the
great,
panels
but
blowing up and stuff? Like,
yeah, it was
yeah,
it was hilarious. And then I kind of got wondering, was it supposed to be funny because it was that bad? But back then it worked. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, it worked. I mean, it's still fun too. Like okay, like the special effects and like even like of course the original series, which sometimes are like hilarious to the point of being distracting. Like
Yes.
the original Gorn is like just funny looking. Like go look up like Kirk fights the Gorn. Just hilarious green like lizard monster. But even like in Next Gen and in like Deep Space Nine, they're not that like the effects aren't that good, right? But
That's
like
true.
it's fine. It's about storytelling. Like, and that's like what I appreciate about like there's a bunch of episodes of like Discovery, which I'm going through right now. Like there's some better ones in the later season, but like the early seasons, especially like and in Picard too, it's like they setting the woke stuff aside for a minute, like they put a lot of emphasis on like big battles and special effects and like this action happening, but like you're missing out on like the character driven stories that actually made it interesting, and that's why I think those shows are really not living up to the legacy of Star Trek. Anyway, I want to go on a rant on that. I was, bringing it back to politics and magnets, how they work. Did you hear the weird thing Trump was saying? He was talking about this electric catapult, and he's like, think of it, magnets. Now all I know about magnets is this: give me a glass of water, let me drop it on the magnets. That's the end of the magnets.
Look, no, I didn't hear that, but
he just says weird stuff all the time, man. Him and Joe Biden both, like it's both of them, but like I see clips like that, and like what the what the hell is he talking about?
So look, that the system has generated Joe Biden and Donald Trump as the front runners for the most important office, regardless of what real amount of power they should have or shouldn't have. That's what the system has generated. Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Like I hear Ron DeSantis is going to drop out of the race. Then it's going to be Nikki Haley versus Vivek Ramaswamy. And what they're both vying for vice presidential ticket with Donald Trump. Like it's wild. It's wild, man.
Yeah. No, it is.
Anyway. Somebody was asking on Twitter, Kevin, and since we're not in the radio show, I'm going to be completely unprofessional. Somebody was asking on Twitter, like, where can they go to make comments on this? Because I could pick them up off of Twitter, but they don't show up on our StreamYard. And so I was going to give them the YouTube link. They don't want to go on Facebook. He would be another great. He would say some obnoxious stuff, but it would be funny. So if we have a YouTube link for my friend Colonel Angus on Twitter, that would be great.
Yeah, we could find that. Just you have to look up a free solution. We got a live show going on there. You look at the channel. It's I gotta find our live broadcast though. How's it work? If I can, I don't know.
Good question. I think we have. There it is, right there. We're live. I'm gonna go hit view on YouTube. If I get lost, guys, I'll be back.
Tim, I'm gonna send you the link. You can send it to them. This is the live link. So anyway, yeah. I mean, I know Twitter's kind of weird. We appreciate you, Twitter audience. It's just that we can't see if you replies to stuff until like after.
Guys, check it out. We get like hundreds of views on Twitter, literally hundreds, maybe even 1,000 sometimes. So like this show is not a complete loser show. Like we're getting views. We're getting views on Twitter, and
because Tim has that blue check
audience. Like we're actually huge compared to a lot of libertarian podcasts. Like we're like mammoth. We're monster. I don't think you guys appreciate just what kind of heavyweights we are.
Kind of a big deal, Tim saying.
Kind of a big deal. We should probably end on that note.
No, we should. We should end on that note. I mean, although I feel like we usually go for a bit longer, but I have to edit this tonight, and I got a busy day tomorrow. So yeah, we'll call it at an hour 9, and we'll be back next week with more exciting content. And Brian, watching Deep Space Nine right now. Deep Space Nine is the best Star Trek. Say it like that's my favorite one.
I love them all. They like look. They would certainly there's this overwhelming like socialist narrative, but like let's be honest. Like if they didn't have that like food synthesizer, they would need to go back.
All right.
And
all right, so listen. All right, wait. Again, this is a Star Trek podcast, but there's a libertarian episode of Deep Space Nine, and Brian, I don't know how far into you are, but there's an episode. I think it's called like the material continuum or something like that. It's an episode about Nog, right? So Nog, who's one of the Ferengi, and Deep Space Nine is remote enough where they can't always replicate all of the stuff that they need, right? So they're not truly a post-scarcity society. And so like Miles O'Brien needs some sort of part that like can't be replicated on station. So he's got to go look around for it. And Nog like negotiates and trades and barters his way to figure stuff out. And he's like, look, this is just capitalism. We still got to do this. We still got to trade. We still have markets. And he just like figures out the value of different stuff and what people want and how he can like, create extra value by giving different things to different people. And he finds a way to get the stuff that he needs. And it's like a great episode. That like
was always kind of a hero in so many different situations, even though his greed would sometimes overwhelm him.
Yeah. I mean, like, and Nog ends up kind of like buying the full like, like Federation like message, Starfleet message. I mean, like, obviously, there's Rom, who becomes a Union guy, and then Quark, who's like the full like bad guy capitalist, even though like I don't know, Quark's still a lot of fun too.
Sure. The Ferengis were fun. Like, that was good. Deep Space Nine. That was probably.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for like libertarian politics, usually Star Trek's not the place to look though. They're preaching, very preachy about being socialist.
Absolutely, man.
Like there's like a whole thing in like the second or third episode of Star Trek where like Picard goes on a thing about how we've eliminated greed and want and blah blah
blah. I did like the battle with the Borg.
Like there's good stuff in there, really.
Standing against the hive mind, and that I did really feel that, and I did really enjoy that.
Yeah. But anyway, all right. I won't take up too much time on Star Trek. I could turn that to a whole other podcast.
Yeah, we're nerds. We're Star Trek nerds. We're Kevin and I are so well rounded. That's another thing I want people to understand. It's just like, I don't know, impulse. We put it out there. We're well read. We've watched all the Star Treks. I don't know. I don't know if that's important or not, but
I don't know. It's important. Some of the stuff's good. Justin Marsh likes Star Trek too, and it's watched all of them beginning to the end. So it's Hey, this is a thing libertarian nerds do sometimes, right? And some of them are pretty good. They got some good themes in them.
Yeah, absolutely. We find libertarian theory where it presents itself.
Yeah.
We'll have to do a show on that someday, right? Like libertarian theory caught on TV. Or
that's a good idea. So folks listening right now, either on the podcast or on the live version, send us your ideas for that. Like show us what we should talk about, because we should definitely do like a good evergreen show on some of that stuff. Just do like
honestly,
a fun, like pop
culture
huge,
one, like multi-episode show. If you think about it,
it'll be fun. Well, because we usually do so many policy focused show. We'll do a fun one every once in a while.
I think we should.
Yeah. All right, send us your ideas. Let's know individual episodes or like different books and stuff like that, or movies, whatever. Send us what you think, and we'll do a show on some of that stuff. I'm gonna need a couple like backup shows when I have kid number 2 anyway, because I might have to be out for a little bit. But
yeah, look, I've read a massive amount of books that eventually led me here, right? Philosophically. I even studied philosophy and economics in college. Like somehow I got here, right? And there were messages that imparted cognitive dissonance in my brain, where it's like And sure, I've gone a little too far sometimes when I'm like, oh, they are all lying to us and they are all taking our rights and they are all getting rich off of us. But there's more to the libertarian story than that, right? To get to where you want people to have freedom, to be cool to each other, freedom to do what they want, and freedom to come up with their own ideas. Like that's what we're about. So
Yeah.
I think it has a lot of potential.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, on that note, send us your stuff. But
Yeah.
I see some folks are already thinking about it.
Yeah.
We're gonna call it a night. Have a great night, folks. Take care.